He goes, it's ice, methamphetamine, you know? And I said, oh, you know, I heard that's pretty bad stuff. And I started medicating on ice daily. And that habit escalated to $1,000 a day. I grew up on a farm, right? I knew nothing about the underworld. I know a hell of a lot now, and I learned the hard way. Whilst I was on ice, I lost my father, I lost my mother, I lost my brother, and I also lost my baby daughter. I started dealing ice to pay for my drug habit. I was shot in the leg, and I was stabbed 3 times in the back of the neck. And before I knew it, the police were following me everywhere.
Simon Fenech, the first of the series where we're going to now release Changemakers in smaller pieces. So basically, we're taking the 1 hour conversation that we had with him, which is still available, by the way, on the channel, but we're going to now release it in 12 to 14 minute size sort of pieces, Monday to Friday. But this is probably one of the most compelling stories that I heard. He's a man that not everybody's heard of, but he actually was one of Qantas Australia's 100 most inspirational people. In 2019, I believe it was, he was nominated for Social Enterprise Champion of the Year in 2020, I believe. He's a great guy. He's had a heck of a story, and enjoy tuning into it now.
Mate, thank you so much for getting on board and being willing to come on here and have a bit of a chat. As I was saying to you on the phone, I'm all about honesty and transparency, and you know, I proudly put out the statement that vulnerability is strength. I believe that. You know, like I've been around my fair share of staunch characters, probably not as many as you have. I'm sure we'll probably find out, but nonetheless, I don't know. I think if a man can be honest about who he is, what his story is, warts and all, and they share that, any time I've ever heard somebody do that, it's powerful, you know, and there's a reason, I believe it more and more as I go along, there's a reason why we should be sharing our own personal stories and who we are as people. Because that's the only thing that's really unique, right? Like everybody can go out there and recreate a different service, you know, Uber's been ripped off by Lyft and Ola or whoever else it is out there, but we're all 100% unique and our story is unique, and you know, it will resonate with the people it needs to resonate with. So on that note, just if you could give us, I guess, a little bit of a rundown on, you know, who you are, and yeah, just let's just wind the clock back and take us through the story if you can. Just give us a rundown on what's happened in your life, and I guess what's led you through to where you are today with Fruitful Work.
Okay, well, I'll start by saying, you know, never in my life, you know, a few years ago would I have thought by sharing my story would I possibly inspire somebody or maybe help them change the course of their life. But it seems through my mistakes, which my mistakes I have now turned to lessons, but through my mistakes and through my actions, and my dark paths, I have learned a lot, and I think it's only fair that I should share them.
Yeah.
Just like an apprentice carpenter goes to school for, you know, 4 or 5 years to be an expert on how to build a house.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I did a life of crime for 8 years, which I fell into. I wasn't born into.
Yeah.
And I might as well put that knowledge to good use to try and help people now. Yeah.
100%.
So I'll take you back a bit, Brad. In 2008, I considered myself a very lucky man. I owned a 50 square house. I drove a Mercedes Benz. I had the wife, the 2 kids. You know, the white picket fence. Rode a Harley Davidson. My life was grand. I had a great job. I only went to school to year 10. So I never had a great education, but I had a great paying job, driving trucks for a leading supermarket chain. I was fit as a fiddle. I was a 2-time Australian champion kickboxer. I was a South Pacific kickboxing champion, so I was fit as a fiddle. And then one day whilst I was at work, I was struck in the back with a forklift, and my 2 lower discs were damaged. My 2 lower discs were fractured, and I was in a wheelchair. So I went from being fit as a fiddle to being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That was something in itself for me. That was the start of my downward spiral. You know, the doctors put me on all these medications, muscle relaxants, nerve relaxants, sleeping tablets, all sorts of painkillers.
Yeah.
And nothing worked. Antidepressants. I was just falling deeper and deeper into a depression cycle, and I was in constant pain 24/7.
Mate. Yeah. I get you. Like, if after this you go and check out my YouTube channel, which is just Brad Houston, I've shared my personal story about breaking my back 8 years ago. So I got T12, L1, incomplete spinal cord injury. You know, similar sort of story. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and on all sorts of drugs, and I am still on a wide variety of drugs. Unfortunately, I'd love to not be, but yeah, I struggle with neuropathic pain. But anyway, I just thought I'd jump in there because it's a very similar sort of story. Yeah.
Well, you would get it. You would get it better than anybody. Then you know,
I addicted, everything, the whole thing. Like, end up abusing oxycodone, whatever. But anyway, let's get back to your story.
Well, I lived in this beautiful double-story house. I was just newly married, and I couldn't even make it to upstairs to the marital bedroom. I was staying downstairs in the spare room. Yeah, you know, and that was really starting to depress me. I couldn't even wipe my own backside. Yeah, that's well, you know the feeling. I don't have to, you know, and the pain never leaves you. It's with you in your sleep. It's with you when you stand up. It's with you when you sit down. And I tried everything. I tried acupuncture, physiotherapy, chiropractors, hydrotherapy. I went to spinal therapy for 12 months. Nothing worked. Yeah. An acquaintance came around one day and said, "Geez, Simon, you look terrible. You know, you're a shadow of the man that I knew. You know, fading away to nothing." Yeah. You know, he goes, "Look, try some of this. You know, they reckon marijuana is supposed to be really good for pain, you know." And I was desperate. I would have tried anything. Yes. And I did. I tried this marijuana. I had a few puffs on this joint, and it actually intensified my pain because I got stoned. Yeah. That stone feeling intensified the pain. All I could do was concentrate on my pain. It was terrible. But so I said, no, that's no good for me, you know. Yeah. Well, the same acquaintance come around a couple of weeks later, and he said, "Look, I've got something else for you to try. Try a bit of this." I said, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "It's ice, methamphetamine." Yeah. He goes, "This will get you up and about, you know." And I said, "Oh, you know, I heard that's pretty bad stuff." He goes, "It's okay as long as you don't abuse it, you know." So I watched him. I watched how he used it. He didn't have to use any needles because I'm afraid of needles, right? Yeah. So, you know, he put it in a pipe and he smoked it, you know, and he blew it into my face, and it didn't smell yucky. It didn't smell like cigarette smoke. It smelled clean. I thought, oh, that's not too bad. Yeah. You know, I'll try that. And all it took was that one puff. Yeah. So it took that one puff for me to be addicted to methamphetamine. Wow. Right. And I went from having so I threw all the doctor's medications in the bin. Yeah. And I started medicating on ice daily.
So you found the ice actually overpowered the pain? That's what you found?
Yeah, yes, it did. Yeah. Well, one thing about ice is, and I'm not promoting ice in any way, shape or form. I need to make that perfectly clear. Yeah. But one thing ice does is it numbs you from the inside out. So and not only does it numb your nerves, but it numbs your soul. It turns you into a hollow shell of the person that you are.